The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is found in the Bible, primarily in Genesis 18 to 19. These cities were located in the region of Canaan, near the Dead Sea, and became infamous for their wickedness, which ultimately led to their destruction by God. God's warning. In Genesis 18, God reveals to Abraham that he plans to investigate the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham intercedes on behalf of the cities, asking if God would spare them if there were righteous people living there. God agrees that if 10 righteous people are found, he will spare the cities. The angels visit. In Genesis 19, 2 angels visit Sodom and are welcomed by Lot, Abraham's nephew. Lot shows hospitality by taking them into his home. However, the men of Sodom surround Lot's house and demand to have sexual relations with the visitors, a clear sign of their depravity. God's judgment. The angels warn Lot to flee with his family, as God will destroy the cities. Lot hesitates, but the angels lead him, his wife, and 2 daughters out of the city. Fire and sulfur rain down from heaven, completely destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's wife disobeys the angel's warning by looking back and is turned into a pillar of salt. The sins that led to their destruction were multifaceted and can relate to modern times. Sexual immorality. The people of Sodom were engaged in extreme sexual sins, including homosexuality, promiscuity, and possible acts of violence like rape. Genesis 19 to 5, Jude 1 to 7. Today, sexual immorality, such as casual relationships, pornography, and exploitation, is widespread and normalized in some parts of society. According to Ezekiel 16:49-50, Sodom's sins also included pride, arrogance, and self-sufficiency, as they neglected God in his ways. Similarly, modern culture often promotes self-centeredness, pride in wealth or power, and a rejection of moral or spiritual accountability. Ezekiel also mentions that the people of Sodom were overfed and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. In today's generation, systemic inequality, lack of compassion for the vulnerable, and societal greed mirror the sin. The people of Sodom blatantly disregarded God and lived as if his standards did not apply to them. Many today ignore spiritual truths, reject faith, or live according to their own desires rather than God's principles. God is merciful and patient, as seen in his willingness to spare the cities for the sake of a few righteous people. This shows the importance of repentance and turning back to God. God's justice. While God is loving, he is also just. Persistent sin without repentance leads to consequences, both individually and collectively. Lot and his family lived in Sodom but were warned to flee from its corruption. This reminds us not to conform to societal sins but to remain faithful to God's standards. Ezekiel emphasizes neglecting the poor as a significant sin of Sodom. This challenges us to actively care for the vulnerable in society.